Welcome back to another restoration video, everyone. Today I have a pair of Jordan 5s in the 2011 metallic colorway. For the age of the shoes, they are not in terrible condition, but there are a few problems that need fixing. For example, one of the major problems with the shoes is that the midsoles are starting to crumble. The next major problem with the shoes is that there's some creasing on the toe boxes, which has started to cause some of the Nubuck to lift up. While it's not as bad on the left shoe, on the right shoe you can see a lot of the Nubuck has lifted up. Along with the midsoles crumbling, it also seems whoever previously owned the shoes tried to re-glue the midsole with something like super glue. The large separations between the midsole and upper of the shoes has allowed me to see a lot of the crumbling that I could not see on the outside of the midsoles. While the midsoles aren't crumbling like sand, they're just kind of pulling away softly, and you can see where some areas are starting to peel away. While the Nubuck on the toe caps has started to lift off, there's also a lot of major lifting and just large tears of Nubuck on the ankle collar. Unlike the toe cap, on the ankle collar it is coming off in larger sections instead of small little bits coming off individually. The last issue with these shoes is that the outsoles are heavily oxidized, but unfortunately on the left shoe it is also a major tear in the left outsole. To start off, I'm going to go ahead and get the outsoles and midsoles off of the shoes, as I want to start and go ahead and try to deoxidize the outsoles while I have the chance. Before I'm able to get the outsoles off though, I'm going to go ahead and take the original toe cap stitching out with my seam ripper, as I want to reuse this in the restoration. Since the bond between the midsoles and upper of the shoes is very weak, I'm able to use a tiny bit of acetone to remove the upper from the midsoles. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and try to remove any parts of the midsole from the outsole of the shoes. For this, I'm using my X-Acto knife to cut the large pieces of the midsole off the outsole, while I'm using the acetone to melt the original parts of the midsole. Unfortunately here though, I realized that I was just completely starting to rip the outsole in half. So unfortunately it seems I'll have to find a donor pair with the original outsoles. So while I wait for my donor pairs to show up, I'm going to go ahead and cut any excess bits of the midsole off the upper of the shoes. Instead of using my Dremel tool to sand this off, I prefer to use my X-Acto knife, as it limits any damage that I could do with the Dremel tool. If you made it to this part of the video and are enjoying it, it'd be greatly appreciated if you went ahead and liked and subscribed. Also, if you're interested in seeing any in-depth photos of each restoration, you can go ahead and follow the MHS socials in the link below. After I cut off any bits of the midsole off the upper of the shoes, I realized there was a tear between some of the seams on the upper of the shoe. Unfortunately, there's not enough area for me to re-stitch this area, so I'll end up having to re-glue it. Before I start to fix the Nubuck on the toe caps of the shoes, I'm going to go ahead and decrease them. This hopefully should make the toe box a little flatter, which should make it a little easier to apply the new Nubuck powder. Now with the toe boxes decreased, I'm going to go ahead and clean the uppers of the shoes, as there's some dirt and grime on them. Now after letting the shoes dry after I clean them and decrease the toe boxes, I'm going to go ahead and start fixing the Nubuck on the toe caps of the shoes. After I get the Nubuck powder down on the areas that need to be fixed, I go ahead and press it down a little bit with my X-Acto knife. After the Nubuck solution powder dries, I'll go ahead and fix any areas that need any touch-ups. While I was waiting for the recently applied Nubuck powder to dry, my donor pairs ended up showing up. For the donor shoes, I'm using a pair of 2020 Fire Red 5s. Since the outsoles on these shoes have a tiny bit of oxidization, I'm going to go ahead and throw them in my light box. But before I go ahead and throw the donor soles into the light box, I'm going to go ahead and sand any bits of the remaining upper from the donor shoes off of the midsoles. For the donor soles, I ended up throwing them in the light box for two 12-hour sessions. Luckily, the two 12-hour sessions got rid of a majority of the oxidization on the outsoles. Those of you with the keen eye already probably picked up that there's a big difference between the donor and original outsoles. The original outsoles have the Jordan lettering on them, while the donor soles have the Nike lettering on them. Unfortunately, I'm having to use the Nike outsoles on these shoes as I wasn't able to find a Jordan lettered outsole with a red Jumpman in good condition. Before I start repainting the new midsoles to the colors that I need for the colorway, I'm going to go ahead and use some 400 grit sandpaper to lightly scuff the midsoles, and after that use some acetone and cotton balls to clean up any paint remaining. For the metallic paint that I use onto the midsoles, I just used some metallic paint from Angelus. I will say though that this metallic paint was very watery, as it took about 10 to 8 coats to get a full coverage on the area of the shark teeth. Before I finished painting the midsole, I also had to go ahead and do a light splatter onto the shark teeth with some black paint. Before I finish this restoration and glue the upper of the shoes back to the midsoles, I'm going to go ahead and put some fabric paint onto the areas of the shoes that are covered by the midsoles.
Homage got the vibe.